friend of the Tsar. All his glorious life, I was also a friend of his pretty young wife. I guess we should have seen that coming. Why, we practically slept in the same double bed. But the Tsar kicked me out, and he slept there instead.
So I think we're going to get started. I must admit, I am not that familiar with this format. I'm usually in a meeting format where I can see everybody, so I'm not sure everyone can hear me now. Can you please put in the chat if you can hear me? Great. Okay. You can hear me. Terrific. Can you see me?
This is a little therapy session for
Right.
Rachel. We're just
Can
gonna.
you really see me? No, really see me as I really am. So welcome everyone. I am absolutely delighted to welcome you, our best friends, our biggest supporters, the Forward's biggest fans, to this very special evening with two of my other favorite people, Jody Redoran and Benyamin Cohen. We are having this night before the end of the year, really just to say thank you. We are grateful to all of you for your support throughout the year and across the years. And we wanted to just take a sort of special moment together to share with you some of the thinking behind one of the most exciting things we've launched this year, our Forwarding the News morning newsletter written by the very talented Benyamin Cohen. On my screen, he's on my lower left. Benyamin is going to be in conversation with our wonderful editor-in-chief, Jody Redoran. And they are going to just kind of show you behind the bylines, beyond the bylines, how it all works, how it's put together. And they're going to talk for a while. We'll take questions in the chat, and then I will say thank you at the end. And that is what's going to happen this evening. So I will stop talking now and hand it over to Jody.
Thanks so much, Rachel, and thank you all for coming tonight. I'm so excited about this conversation. First, because as Rachel said, it's just great to be in conversation with you, our donors, our supporters, our friends, our family, and thank you so much for supporting us. You make this newsletter and this news organization, and my children's dinner and all those things possible. So thank you for that. It's so pride-making to work at a reader-supported philanthropic organization in the public interest. And it's really inspiring and moving for me. And the other reason I'm just so excited about this conversation is because Forwarding the News is maybe the thing I'm most proudest of, boy, that's not English, most proud of that I've done in my little more than 2 years as editor here. I came in, my proposal for joining this place as editor-in-chief, one of the top headlines was we needed to remake the morning newsletter to be an essential Jewish news briefing on what matters to American Jews. And it took me a long time, but I found the right guy to do it in Benyamin Cohen, who came in as our news director at the beginning of 2021. He came from a lifetime in Jewish journalism. He's worked at the Atlanta Jewish Times, where he grew up in Atlanta. He invented a Jewish news magazine. He then ran a website called From the Grapevine, which is about everything to do with Israel that's not political, which is interesting. And I think I always say that the most important thing for any manager or any editor, the most important skill is the ability to match person with assignment. And I've just never done a better job than this one, because this is the perfect guy to do the thing that we need most, which is to curate the vast, complicated internet for us and help us start every day with the news we need, with a lot of dessert and fun, with a clear voice and a sharp mind. And it's just been such a pride to bring it into the world and to actually work on it with him every single day. So welcome, Benyamin.
Thank you for that wonderful introduction. I think you forgot to mention that my birthday and the Forward's birthday is the same day.
Oh my gosh, right. And you'll be 125 on April 22nd, right?
I hope not. No.
No, he's a little bit younger than the Forward, but we are excited to be celebrating and thinking about all the ways we can use the newsletter to celebrate the 125th. Benyamin is in his home office in the very Jewish, very journalistic, very digital place of Morgantown, West Virginia, where all the magic happens. So I wanted to, before I start talking to Benyamin about the newsletter, I wanted to just mention, Rachel said you could post questions in the chat. I actually want you to post questions using the Q&A button. You're welcome to chat in the chat, but for the questions you want me to bring up to our conversation, you should put them in the Q&A. Just makes my life a little bit easier. So Benyamin, why don't you start with, like, I'm going to give you the softest of softballs. Like, when you make this thing that we all value so much, what are your, like, what's your philosophy? What are your driving principles? What are you trying to do? What's it for? What's it supposed to be?
I think number one priority for me is variety. You know, I don't want it to be all Israel news or all anti-Semitism news, or all culture or all opinion. I really, that to me is the hardest juggling part of the newsletter, is to make sure that we're getting a variety, because I also think, like, I'm someone who's like, I'm very interested in a lot of different topics, and I'm not sure everyone is like that. So for the readers who like culture, I want to make sure there's culture stuff. For the readers who like the hard news stuff, and, you know, for the readers who like the fun stuff. And so I try to give a little bit of something to everybody.
And I was bragging about how smart I was to give you this gig, but you've actually been doing essentially this your whole life, right? Starting when you were 5 years old or something like that?
Yeah, I used to, when I was probably about 5 years old, you know, I'm one of 6 kids. I'm number 5, so I'm just kind of, you know, towards the youngest side. And it was always hard to be heard in the house because, you know, there's just so much going on. And so at dinner time, I don't know where it came from. I just wanted to be like the Walter Cronkite of our house. And, you know, like around the dinner table, I would set up a desk and I'd start, you know, I'd collect news throughout the day, like news from our community. Like, this rabbi is having a birth tomorrow, or so-and-so had a baby, or whatever. And I would tell them the news at the dinner table. I'd make them all be quiet and listen to me. And ever since then, I mean, I've really always had that desire to want to be the one to tell someone a piece of news. I mean, even, you know, to this day with my family, we have a WhatsApp chat with the family. And to this day, I want to be the first one. If I see something that I think, you know, is relevant, I want to break it to my family before another sibling breaks it to my family. Just yesterday, you know, it's like even birthdays. Like, yesterday was my brother-in-law's birthday, and I wanted to be the first one on the chat to say happy birthday, to remind everyone it was his birthday.
So Benyamin, your audio is not perfect, and we're family here. So I don't know if
Sure.
it's the
Let me try
the setup here. All right.
Let me try switching my audio. Hold on.
He's probably got the best setup of anyone on the team, so I'm surprised that we got
testing. Any better?
Sounds better
Testing,
for me. You guys text in the chat if you're feeling it's not better.
So much better. Okay.
So much better. All right, we're good. Thank you for that.
Good thing I have a microphone.
One of my very favorite parts of working at the Forward is I get to use words like tachlis at work. So I'm going to ask you a tachlis question. You know, we usually in journalism say we don't want to tell too much about how the sausage is made, but this is literally a session about how the kosher sausage is made. So walk us through, like, what it, you know, it's one thing to be the first one in your sibling group to text the WhatsApp with the latest about, you know, some great aunt somewhere, or even some rabbi from Atlanta, but to ingest the Jewish world available to you online and curate it and spit it back to 100,000 people every morning succinctly is a little more complicated. So tell us a little bit about, talk tachlis with us and walk us through the process.
So it's a matter of always having my antenna up, you know, even when I'm in bed and scrolling through the news. And if I see something, you know, I make sure to, you know, save it for the newsletter. in a certain sense, it means I can never relax, because even when I'm like watching a TV show and I see something Jewy on the TV show, I quickly, send myself an email about it. But yeah, it's really just keeping an eye on everything that's going on. So I have a lot of Google alerts set up. I have Google Alert for anti-Semitism, Google Alert for, Israel, but, Google Alerts for Gal Gadot, and other interesting things like that. And then, I start the day at 5 a.m. The funny thing is I used to wake up at 5 a.m. even when I was a kid, again, because it was the only quiet time in our house. And I would read the newspaper before everybody got up. And so that's kind of the similar thing, that I wake up even before my rooster wakes up,
Wait, you have a rooster? Let's pause there.
Yes, I have one rooster and 15 chickens, 15 hens.
Co-hens.
And we call them the Cohens, and each one of them is named after, or most of them are named after different female NPR hosts, like Terry Gross, Cokie Roberts, Melissa Block. Some of them actually follow the chickens on Twitter. The chickens have their own Instagram account, and a lot of the NPR hosts follow their.
You do live the news in this way, yes?
Yes, exactly.
All right. So now when you get up at 5 a.m, you've already done a lot of this the day before, right?
That's the little secret. Yeah. Some of the stuff I obviously I can do the day before. We have a calendar section, which is kind of like my fun sandbox where I like to play fun facts of the day, this day in history. I don't have to wait till 5 a.m. to look up that stuff. I can actually for the very first time reveal a secret here that even Jody doesn't know. Let's get a drum roll. This is something you don't even know. I actually pre-write the entire week's calendar section on Sunday. Nobody.
I kind of knew that, but I mean, I kind of guessed that. I would have thought, frankly, Benyamin is one of the most organized journalists I've ever met in my life. And I think I would have guessed that you had even more than 1 week in advance done.
No, just
the calendar section. If you all are not, the calendar section is the most awesome thing. It is, because it's the mix that is so surprising and interesting. I mean, today we had Adolf Eichmann, who of course also is related to Superman. We had something about the Hebrew calendar that I can't remember, but it was really obscure. Sometimes there's like, National Pumpkin Pie Day. A new thing we've been debuting, we meaning Benyamin has been debuting, is looking back at what the Forward covered a year ago, which is another way of getting more of our content kind of out. Benjamin's brilliant at packaging up stuff we've done that's new, that's old, that's, recipes from somewhere. And it's all in this tight little package about the calendar. I feel like it sets me off for the day. That's my favorite part. What's your favorite part?
Well, I was just gonna say I find it really interesting, the thing you pointed out, that where I started looking at what were we reporting on a year ago on this day, because I think that kind of speaks volumes. It just kind of, and we can look back and we did one a few days ago where the vaccine rollout was happening a year ago in Israel, and Bibi Netanyahu made headlines by saying he wants to be the very first Israeli to get the vaccine shot. And it's just like, here we are 12 months later, and okay, Bibi's not even the leader anymore, and we have so many people who are who are not getting vaccines, and it's just like, it's so interesting to look back at a headline like that, and it just kind of, you can learn a lot, I think, from those types of headlines.
So again, I'm going to go to Tachlis for a second, because I don't even know how do you even look at what we wrote a year ago, like what we published a year ago? What is the literal? Because it's not like we have a physical front page to page back through in some microfiche.
No. So, we have, a content management system, which we're looking forward to upgrading in the new year. And you can go back, there's actually no easy way to do it. I kind of have to manually click through about 300 pages to get to last year's articles. Okay. And then I start scrolling through them and seeing, a lot of times we're doing, a book review or an essay. And so some of those really don't, stand the test of time. Last year, a year ago on this day, we were writing a book review about whatever. So, it really has to be something newsy to fit that, to check that box.
I mean, the other thing that's in there that's always, every time I'm editing it, I just am shocked because we have what else we're reading, which of course is what else Benyamin is reading. And I'm thinking he's reading something else. There's so much here already. So that's also where you get to play a little.
Yeah, I'll tell you, my goal is, you know, is to get you excited, you Joe, because I know you're a very well-read person, and so I'm like, okay, if I write this, is she gonna be like, whoa? Like, I think we did something the other day about last week. We were writing about a camel, and this is in the Middle East. There was a camel beauty contest, and they were telling people they were camels who had Botox done were disqualified from the competition, and I was like, that's going to get a haha out of Jody. And so I wanted to make sure.
Actually, just this morning, another funny thing happened, which is so we can get back to the schedule a little bit, but Benyamin starts his day very early. So do I. But I was going to say at the beginning, it's great to be on Zoom with you because 94% of our communication is through comment exchanges on the Google Doc or Slack messages or text messages, which are the various ways we edit this newsletter. And it's just this morning, I'm like finishing up, you know, reading a little item about the JNF was expanding a forest preserve for some new species of animal in Israel, but a monkey or something, right? And then he slacks me and says, wait, there's a better weird animal story. I'm swapping it.
Well, I kept the monkey story. I found a way to squeeze in the other story.
Oh, we just
the other story.
Sorry, I didn't. I thought you were swapping them out. Okay, I'm gonna.
No,
go,
I used it as the photo of the day. It was the Jewish mayor in Florida who pardoned some pigs for Christmas.
Right.
I
get the sense. So I've said that my favorite is the calendar. I get the sense that photo of the day is your favorite part. Am I right about that, or?
No, actually, my favorite part is the round the web section, actually, because that's really where I feel like I can play around in there because I can mix serious with mundane. You know, I could do some of my, I'm a pop culture guy, so I love being able to squeeze in something about a TV show or a casting, you know, or a Jewish movie or something. And yeah, so to me, it's a challenge every day to fill that section. And that's what I'm really doing at 5 a.m. is surfing. I got a list of, 20 or 30 news sites that I'm looking at. And it's also, even if I'm just looking at, Google News or something, I see a news headline that's in the news that day, let's say it's Omicron or something else. And I'm like, is there a Jewish angle? How can I make that, we talk about in the forward newsroom, something called a jangle, which is a hybrid of the words Jewish angle, so is there a Jewish angle to this story? And so to me, it's a challenge, and it's a fun challenge that I like to tackle.
Yeah, I gotta say, I mean, this is one of the areas where, again, your kind of unique excellence for this role shines through, because I think when we thought about the value proposition of kind of curating the web for the freshest most important Jewish stories of the day, what that felt like to me was looking at some Jewish websites, looking at some big mainstream news organizations, and every day there's some totally obscure, like local paper or like it's not just the Hollywood Reporter and Variety, it's some
the Amarillo Times.
Yeah, and then some like weird pop culture thing that's like, the CAA newsletter or something. I mean, it's like every week there is some new outlet that I cannot even imagine how you have found it. And I just think, well, that's not something anyone's going to see anywhere else. Right. We have a great question. One I have asked my very own self from Stuart Selby, asking you, what are those manual typewriters used for? And you can also tell us where their origin is and why so many headphones.
Well, first, let me say, pre-pandemic, this room was completely empty. There was a white wall and there was nothing in this room. And then, once I realized I'm going to have to be on Zoom a lot, was kind of my wife's pandemic project was to decorate the room. You can actually see a little more behind the scenes. There's a lot of art on the wall and things like that. But the typewriters. So one typewriter, I'm obviously a journalist. That kind of speaks to me. One typewriter is just from, I found it in an antique shop, but the one behind, this one back. I don't know how I get to it. That one back there, the black one. My wife's grandfather was a journalist at a daily newspaper in Jacksonville, Florida. And that is his typewriter. And actually, you can't, I don't know if you could see, but on the wall up there, there's actually a photo of my wife's grandfather on that typewriter.
Excellent.
So we have this. Sorry to, hope I'm not like making everybody nauseous with the camera. And the headphones, I'm an audiophile. I listen to podcasts a lot. And when I find a pair of headphones I like, I'm afraid they're going to like not be around anymore. Like they're going to make a new model and I don't like the new model. So I bought like 5 of the old model.
Well,
Yeah.
I never actually see you use the different ones. What do you use them for?
Usually when I'm away from my desk. So I'm walking around doing dishes, walking the dogs, cleaning the chicken coop. That's how I listen to podcasts and talk to people on the phone, things like that.
Not with the
Not in front of
AirPods?
my desk.
Okay.
No, yeah, because you know what? It's very cold where I live. I live in the mountains, and so they actually double as earmuffs in the wintertime.
That's good. So you mentioned your wife and the fact that you live in Morgantown. So we should expand on that a little bit because your wife's also in the media world and is somewhat why you live there. So maybe tell us a little about Elizabeth.
The first thing is I'm the son of a rabbi and she's the daughter of a minister. And so that kind of is an interesting. I met her in synagogue one day. She was the only girl I hadn't dated, and she was blonde, and yeah. So she's also from Atlanta, and we moved here because she is a professor. She actually studies what we do, Jody. She's a media psychologist, so she studies how what we do impacts people, and she's a professor at West Virginia University, and that's what brought us here 9 years ago. Yeah.
And we have a couple more questions coming, but I want you to talk a little bit about, you mentioned the chicken coop, you mentioned walking the dogs. You last year posted a video on Twitter of your sort of sleigh ride down the driveway to get the mail. Just tonight on Twitter, you posted this incredible sunset photograph, which maybe we can find and post in the chat. But tell us a little bit about your unusual newsroom.
Yeah, first of all, I never could have moved here pre-internet. I literally live in the woods. My nearest neighbor is probably a quarter mile away. I see more animals. I haven't left the house in 5 days. I see more animals than humans. But yeah, so and it's very, like you said, it's very picturesque. And we have the chickens, we have the dogs. I have a tractor. We live next door to a dairy farm, and so we help milk the cows sometimes. It's good for this. It's good for the body and good for the soul, I guess.
A couple questions from the audience. Have there been breaking news moments that were challenging to cover, like where stuff is literally happening in that kind of 5 to 8 a.m. hours when we're trying to put the thing to bed?
We had something a couple of weeks ago. I'm trying to remember what it was. Or something happened at 7 a.m. And we were already almost done with the newsletter, and we kind of rewrote.
Hold on, I remember it too. I don't remember what it was though.
And the funny thing was, there's another Jewish newsletter that goes out, and it goes out probably like 45 minutes before us. So they had already sent theirs out, and so we were like, we could get this, and they've already, they missed this opportunity. But I can't remember exactly
I wish I
what
could
it was.
remember what it was. But there's other times though, I would say, I don't know if that definitely was the one where it was like, wait, hold on, let's redo this. And it was and it got a lot of attention. But there's other times where you do see something in the morning and make a change. And
100%. 100%. Yeah, 100%. Like I'll go to bed tonight thinking I have in mind what's going to happen. And then overnight, a bunch of stuff happens and I kind of have to rethink. That's why I try to get as much of the non-timely stuff out of the way, the calendar section, the photo of the day, often the lead story we've chosen the night before, if it's not a breaking news story. So that way, when I have my time from 5 to 8 in the morning, I can use that time wisely. And there was something, you know what it was, Jody? There was something, I actually wrote the story. I'm trying to remember what it was now.
Yeah.
It was a story that I wrote at the very last second so that we could have it up on our site in time for the.
Right. I'm going to find that while you answer the question. Is there a perfect story for the newsletter?
I thought today's story was the perfect story for the newsletter. And I'll explain, because one of the nice things I like about this newsletter, as opposed to the newsletters the morning newsletter we used to send out was just a headline, a picture, and a link. So there wasn't really much explanation behind it. And, to be able to explain this story, I always say, like, if you're going to be on an elevator with somebody for 30 seconds and you have 30 seconds to sell this story, tell them all the cool, fun facts in this story, tell them why it's important. And I get that opportunity. And so this morning's story was the cream cheese. We're all worried about the great cream cheese shortage of 2021. And we had a really interesting take on it this morning, that we discovered that perhaps the cause of this is a cream cheese plant in a small town on the border of New York and Canada. And just to say the headline, I think would really, really, really undersell that story. So my goal was to read that story and take out all like the 5 coolest nuggets of that story and say, here, let me try to, I got 30 seconds in the elevator with you. Let me tell you the 5 coolest facts, and hopefully you're going to click read the story at the end. And so I think that's when the newsletter really serves its purpose, is when I can get you, if there's a headline that didn't sell the story, but if I could sell you the story and you click on it, then I've done my job.
Yeah, I want to pick up on that and piggyback on a little bit too. I probably should have started with this, but right. So in the digital news environment where everybody's like, reading us on here and there's all this other stuff happening, and every piece of journalism is kind of traveling out there on its own. You do have just this headline and image to kind of grab people, and it's a really competitive landscape. And so the 2 biggest things that I think that this newsletter, at least the ambition originally was, I think it's maybe gone beyond there, but one is to do what Benyamin just described, which was give more context, why this matters, how to think about this, what are the highlights on the bigger stories, to really walk you through how to think about something. And there are other newsletters that do this really well, like the whole Axios news organization is basically organized around this idea. And then the other thing was our old newsletters also had only 5 stories. And what this allows you to do, and everything we could promote in the newsletter had to be an article. So we were like creating these, everything had to be an article of some length that would then be only these 5 could be highlighted. What this allows us to do is, so we've got an opportunity to go deep on something, or to sort of give you the TLDR of something bigger and deeper, and the ability to give you just 1 sentence or 2 sentences about things that you really don't need to read a whole article on. Sometimes there is no article. It's just somebody's told us something's happening, or there's an opportunity for something. We just throw that in. It also allows us to do that for our own stuff. We've had I think in tomorrow's newsletter, you'll see a call out for new opinion columnists. A couple of days ago, we encouraged people to sign up for the New California newsletter. So it's super flexible, and it allows us to both walk people through that 30-second elevator pitch and give them a staccato, almost a CNN chyron of things that we could never have, we can give them much more things. Right. And then the other thing I wanted to ask you about, because I think this is another one of your favorite loves, and I know it's also dear to a lot of people on this call, is the newsletter has been a great platform to leverage and showcase archival work, stuff from the Forward archives. And there are visuals that are great, and there's so much there. Some of your favorite items from the archive that you've done, or talk to us about how you do that stuff.
So I can give you a sneak peek tomorrow. We like to do it on Thursdays, especially for Throwback Thursday. Think about it. We've been around for 125 years, and no other Jewish publication that's around today can say that. And so it would be, why not take advantage of that history? When I visited the Forward offices in August, we got a tour of the archives, and I was like, it was like, 15, 20 minute, maybe a half hour tour. And I was like, I could sit all day in here and look through these cabinets. There was just all this interesting stuff in there. So what I do is I reach out to Hannah Pollock, our beloved archivist at the Forward. And we try to talk about, find items, how we covered a certain story, which is really sometimes fascinating, just like what I was saying earlier about how we covered a story a year ago. and I think you can learn a lot from that. Sometimes it's fun stuff like we did around Thanksgiving, how we covered the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. I know, Jody, this is a pet peeve of yours. We had some misinformation in the caption. There was some animal balloon and we said it was Mickey Mouse, and it was clearly not Mickey Mouse. But tomorrow, since it's football season right now, tomorrow, a sneak peek for those watching right now, tomorrow's Throwback Thursday is a 1936 photo of quarterback Benny Friedman, who played for the New York Giants, I think. And we wrote about him in the paper, and we had a cool photo of him. And we asked him, what's the secret to his like physical, abilities? And he said, it's cornflakes. But he's, and it's written in Yiddish.
Great.
Yeah.
We could actually show the photo. I actually just went to look in the working doc to see if the photo was there, and it does not seem to be. But if you throw it in there, I will share it on my screen. If you throw the link in there. But as you're doing that, I'm going to ask you, one of the, the forward has been putting more resources and attention on the newsletter, which in many ways we see as the new front page. And we are certainly not alone. Every news organization is putting more and more energy and creativity into their newsletters. The Atlantic just announced some new slate of, 24 something newsletters. The New York Times, The Morning, and has something like 10 million recipients. And I think I'm behind on that. And they have when I was running the newsletters there, they had like 70 newsletters. I don't know how many they have now. And then of course we've got Substack, which is growing by leaps and bounds. Barry Weiss's Substack is going to soon rival us for being the biggest Jewish news organization. I'm half joking, but not really. I think she has 8 employees now. Anyway, I know you read a lot of newsletters, and I know you follow the industry really closely, but so tell us a little bit about the newsletters you love and why, but also like, what do you think it means? Like, what does this mean for the industry? What's going on that we're doing so that newsletters they keep predicting the downfall of newsletters, and they just keep getting bigger and bigger. So I wonder what your thoughts are on that.
And it's the most basic thing. I mean, it's email. We talk about like social media is new and TikTok's new and whatever. Like email newsletters have been around since, the early 90s or whatever, mid 90s, so it's like what's old is new again. And so, I mean, I'm a huge fan of newsletters. I read them voraciously. They're easy, you can read them. I read a lot of newsletters in bed, but before I go to bed. I think, there's such a low barrier to entry. Sometimes websites can be clunky. Sometimes you get pop-up ads. You have to, all these different things. And it's like a newsletter is literally you're waiting in line at the grocery store, and you could scroll through a few things, and you could choose to click on it. And I think the nice thing about what we call a narrative newsletter, which is not just here's a link, but it's kind of like what we do is where we're describing the story, is people can read that paragraph about the story and say, well, that's all I need to know. And if they're more interested, they can click on it and learn more. So I think you're accommodating 2 different audiences. As far as what newsletters I read, honestly, I certainly read a lot of Jewish newsletters, and I get upset like if they found something that I didn't find. But actually I read a lot of like, business newsletters. I read a lot of pop culture newsletters because I know I'm going to be able to find something in there. Like I read a Hollywood. There's something called The Wake Up, which is like an industry inside Hollywood, movie deals and things like that. I read that every morning, and it's one of my favorite emails. And because I can find something in there that might be Jewish related that no other Jewish publication has reported on yet. So, because I'm looking while everyone else is looking at the ADL news release, I'm over here looking at the Wake Up Hollywood, email. That's just one example.
Yeah.
By the way, I just emailed you the photo of the football.
Okay, great. I'll do it in a second. I just want to add to that a little bit, because I think there are a couple other things going on here. I mean, one is, in some ways, this email thing is a throwback to that atomization of journalism that I was describing. All editors, journals, whatever, it used to be all about packaging and curation, putting together the front page or the magazine, deciding the cover story. And then the internet like busted that up, because unless you had a major platform like the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal, everything was atomized, and it democratized the platform, which was great for small publishers, but it also meant it really like lost the role of the arbiter, the journalistic arbiter and the packager, you know? And I think email is a way to bring that back and to say, we're going to tell you the order that we think you should read stuff in. But I think what's brilliant about it and what I love so much about it, I think, like, I don't know, is it sacrilegious to say even better than the front page, is that it's got such strong voice attached to it. So it's not this kind of remote institutional, there are 6 spots on the front page and you're supposed to know that the right-hand one is the lead story and what this a 4-column lead means this, and you know, nobody knew any of that. And instead it's like a human being in a conversational voice, really like as though they're sitting at the kitchen table with you, drinking the coffee and, you know, going through the news with you and kind of chatting with you about it. And I think that's so much better than that kind of detached front page or the, you know, whatever, even maybe it's a little bit more like Walter Cronkite reading the news. I don't know.
Or Benyamin at his dinner table as a kid. Yeah, I mean, if you look, you know, most people, you kind of lose the importance of a front page, right? Because most people are finding a story on social media, let's say, and so they're just seeing a random story. They're clicking on the random story and they're bypassing the New York Times front page or our front page, and they're going directly to that story. And like you said, it gives us, oh, there's the football, little Benny Friedman. I think that the headline Hannah said is, it says Benny Friedman has the ball. Like that was the headline.
Which, they didn't know that much about sports, so they just said, you know, what's obvious.
Yeah. But anyway, so yeah, and like you said, so I think because people are clicking on so many articles and there are so many news sites, you know, good news sites, not good news sites, and people, everything kind of looks the same when you're reading it on the web. Like you said, I think it's kind of a throwback, if you will, so I like, you know, this guy's voice and he's going to hold my hand and walk me through the news. And right. And it gives you a great place to insert voice, insert a joke here and there. You know, I try to do that once or twice in a newsletter. And it allows us to help drive the narrative. That's our slogan. You know, what's driving the American Jewish conversation?
So we have a great question from the assistant principal, Risa. Is it Risa? Risa
Davids.
Risa, who you can tell, maybe she'll tell us a story about you. Maybe you'll tell her a story about her. She's asking, would you agree that many people today read only headlines and not articles, thus the popularity of well-written newsletters? And I think the question she didn't ask is like, is that good or bad for the Jews / journalists?
I think it's great because, like you said, there are so many news sites out there and they all look the same to, you know, to someone who's not knowledgeable. You know, a New York Times website could look just as well as, some rinky-dink news website. And so if we say, okay, this is the newsletter, this is from the forward, this is from a name you can trust, we're helping you understand the story. We're explaining the story. It's not just a salacious headline, you know, because a lot of times nowadays, unfortunately, it's, you know, people are putting headlines, what's going to be the clickiest headline? We call it clickbait, you know, and a newsletter really speaks to the opposite of that. It's like, okay, no, we're not really, we want to tell you a story. And that's the whole basis of what journalism is we're storytellers. And the newsletter, I think, is the perfect package for that. And it's distraction free, which I think is another trend right now. You know, I have a program on my computer when I'm writing something where it fills up the entire screen and it closes all the other programs. And it's like, you know, and it's just a distraction free. It's like, you know, writing on one of these typewriters.
I believe at some point in promoting this event, you promised to reveal how many cups of coffee it takes to produce this newsletter.
I start my first. Well, here's how many cups of coffee a day. Because the truth is, I am working on this newsletter, obviously, not just from 5 to 8 in the morning. I'm working on it throughout the day, doing as much as I can the day before, working with our team, our fantastic team of reporters, you know, and editors. You know, what are you working on today? How can I help promote it tomorrow? Is it worth a paragraph? Is it worth 3 paragraphs? Is it worth just 1 sentence? So there's a lot of work that goes on during the day to get it together. So there's probably 8 cups of coffee throughout the day.
8 is a lot of cups of coffee.
I don't know if you could see this. No, but I actually just got, this is actually a funny thing. My wife got me for Hanukkah a coffee coaster. It's plugged in it's plugged in and you put your cup on it and it keeps your cup warm, which was like the best Hanukkah gift ever.
I bought this for myself after a recent trip to my sister's. It's a Yeti coffee mug, like for camping.
Yeah.
And it keeps your coffee hot for hours, and also has like a no spill thing. And it's really holds in your hand beautifully. It was really impressive.
I'll put a link to the coaster in the chat.
Okay, good. Excellent. Do you think so the newsletter launched on July 12th, and its popularity has been steadily growing. More and more people open it every day, which is very gratifying. And we get all that nice feedback that was in the slides at the front. How do you think it's affected how the newsroom works?
Hold on, let me paste this link to the coaster before I forget. There you go. That's the coaster. I think the newsroom has really embraced it on two levels. Level number one is people are vying for, people work hard, reporters work hard, editors work hard on their stories, and they want the most eyeballs on their stories. And this is a much better, in my opinion, I think, and I think in their opinion too, it's a much better way to showcase their work. They could spend 2 weeks working on an investigative story, uncovering documents and uncovering something. And if it all looks the same, if you go like, here are 5 stories for this morning, boom, 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 the recipe for cream cheese, the recipe for cake and challah is the same as this 2-week investigation. And so the newsletter really allows for us to not only say this is important, but also to help explain, some of the background information. So I think the reporters really look at it as a way like, finally, we can really showcase our work. And they help me. Often I ask them if they could help me, because they're the ones, especially with a big investigative story, they're super close to the story. So I'll ask for their help in helping craft how it appears in the newsletter in the morning. And that's why sometimes you see on the bottom of the newsletter, I do some shout outs to some of our team members for their help with the newsletter.
So I want to ask you about the subject line, which is such an art form, because Risa asked about the, people just read headlines, and that is a reality of the digital world. And with a newsletter, it's also true. Like if you get people with the subject line, they open it, and if you don't, and they don't see any of this other stuff that we've been working on. And I'm gonna share a little bit of my own tachlis. So Benyamin, as he said, is really working on this throughout the day and week. And I usually I try to do this during the day, but I almost always do it right after my kids go to bed. I edit all the stuff that's been pre-done, the lead story, the calendar, all that stuff. Then I get up, do a couple little checks, go work out for a half hour, come back, edit around the web, then do a bunch of stuff getting my kids ready for school. And then I get a version in my email that looks just like the newsletter you're going to send. And then we do a little more final tweaks on that, and then it goes out. So almost 99% of the time in the Google Doc version, when we're working, you don't put your draft for the subject line. And that's like it's like my big thing to what's the subject line going to be when the proof comes. And it's real. And I know, because I write a newsletter on Friday afternoons, that it's like, I don't know, it's where the magic happens or it doesn't. It's a lot of pressure. It's sort of like headline writing, but a little different. So talk to me about your philosophy of subject line art.
First, it's a total aha moment. You cannot plan that. It's a total aha moment. And so like, it's really hard for me to write it the night before. It's because you just have you have a clarity. Like when I see the whole newsletter top to bottom, because I'm so involved in the nitty gritty all day, but when I see the proof and I'm like, okay, this is how the reader's going to see it. And they're going to see this picture, and I'm like, I got it. And then you'll tweak it and you'll make it better. Like you'll flip it around. Like, what if we put it as a question? So I kind of have to wait to see at the mornings. That's certainly something, that happens towards the last minute. I will say this, we have, because we're doing a newsletter, we have the ability to look at the statistics, how many people clicked on, and so we are constantly looking at this stuff, a couple hours, at lunchtime, we can look at the report for that morning, and we can see when I wrote it, which stories get clicked on. If it was in bold, more people clicked. Did people click on this picture? If it was further down, did people click on it? And I'm always fascinated. Oftentimes, one of the most clicked things is like a video at the bottom of the email, and I'm shocked people made it all the way down. Pleasantly surprised.
I'm going to show more sausage getting made. This is what we can look at. So this is
the heat map. It's called.
This is the heat map. I just pulled up a random one, but this is showing you everywhere people clicked.
Yeah.
This is this morning's. So we got yesterday. Sorry, yesterday. This is yesterday, not cream cheese, right? So
you see that where it says read the story in bold in italics got much more clicks than anything
even this
than that picture did.
Or the headline. We think of this as the headline, but it's really the read the story that gets you. This video we had of our Jake and Cornblue, you can see people clicking all over. We put as many links as we can in here, and we're just going to keep going just because it's kind of fun to see this. Let's see. I don't remember here's this great photo here. Still got a couple hundred people here clicking over here. That's good news. They're still with us. I love this photo. This was this was a late breaking. I mean, it's not like late breaking news, but you swapped this out in the morning because it was newsy.
I'll tell you the story behind that photo. Was I saw that photo posted somewhere on an internal Chabad thing. It's a picture of a Chabad rabbi helping with the tornado relief in Kentucky, and I saw it posted on some internal Chabad thing. And so I that's actually what I spent an hour on that day, is tracking down that photo. And so I looked up on the Chabad, I looked up the guy's name, I contacted him. I have a local Chabad rabbi here in West Virginia, and he gave me the guy's phone number, and I called him up. I said, can I have that photo? And he's like, are you crazy? I'm busy helping people. I can't send you the photo. And then later in the day, his son sent me some cell phone pictures, which were really not good. And then so I contacted the head of PR for Chabad late at night. And I said, can you get me this photo? And I didn't even know until I woke up the next morning. I found it in my inbox. And I'm like, thank God. and that's how it like ended up there at the last minute. But having all of this data available, we're doing it in the
wait, pause on the photo before you go to the data. I just want to say one more thing about that, because I asked you about this and you said it at the time. So, and it's a great example of the conundrum of the Jewish angle and the way the newsletter helps us navigate through it, because there was a massive tornado in Kentucky and 100 people were killed, and
we didn't have a story.
It's a big news story, and it has nothing to do with us, really. We don't have anyone in Kentucky. What are we sometimes talk about sort of trying to get ourselves into that thing. Oh, could we get somebody to write something? But you want the newsletter to reflect that there was this massive thing that happened, and here's a way. We're not like changing the whole agenda of the newsletter or of the forward staff's priorities, but like really compelling photo, 2 sentences. I didn't know it took all that work to get it, but okay. And it's like now we have a touch of that, so you don't feel like we're ignoring something.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, right, exactly. It's it was one of the biggest news stories on Monday morning, and it would kind of seem like silly. Here we are sending out, here's all the news you need to know today, and we're blind and not telling us what's happening in Kentucky. So yeah, it was a great way, and that's the nice thing about the newsletter that we're able to do now, which we weren't able to do before when it was just here are 5 of our stories. We can say, okay, we can link to stories somewhere else. We can just put a photo, we can just put a video, and it allows us to say, to serve a buffet. We often use the word buffet and say, here's a buffet of news that we think you're going to be interested in. Some of it's ours, some of it's links to other places. But I think that the forward is able to bring value to the reader because of that.
Sometimes Benyamin will, in that late afternoon when he's trying to figure out the structure, he'll ask me, should we do this as a lead story or should we do a buffet? And I'll say, well, I don't know. What will be on the buffet? Will it be delicious? Will it be high protein?
Will there be dessert?
There's always dessert.
Yeah.
So I think we have time for one more question. There may be a new one in the chat. Okay, so Ruth Lax wants to know, how do you maintain objectivity and accuracy in today's divisive, mudslinging milieu? It's an easy question.
Right.
Yes is the answer, right?
Yeah. Well, I think you hold the newsroom to very high standards. And I think, so many news organizations, have agendas or lean one way or the other. I think the nice thing about, the forward, you look at the, century-old history of the forward, is that we've been reporting the news for 125 years. And I think we have that, historical footing to stand on. And so I try, occasionally I'll put something in a newsletter where I'll lean in one direction, just even like just using an adjective like, oh, that was a messy divorce. And you're like, we don't know if it was messy. You're like, don't say that.
Well, so I'll piggyback on this, Ruth, just to say, first of all, I mean, I think the word objectivity is like a little outdated, it was a little bit unrealistic when we were talking about it for, decades. And what we really think about now is independence and fairness. So we come at stories and we come at the curation of stories from a perspective, from a neutral or independent perspective. We aren't trying to show you this perspective or that, or prove this point or that. We're just trying to understand a complicated world and share it with you. And fairness is obviously very much related to that. And, accuracy is, it's harder and harder because there's more and more, there's sloppiness everywhere. And then there's like actually bad actors manipulating disinformation everywhere. The messy divorce is a fine example, but I'll tell you bring up another example from a few months ago. There was a story in the Jerusalem Post, I believe, about Nike having, decided not to pull out of stores in Israel. And it was a very short story, a few paragraphs, clearly based on kind of a press release. And if I'm remembering correctly, it basically said, but this is not a boycott. It seemed to be very strong, kind of no worries about a boycott kind of, but there wasn't any there was no evidence of that. The underlying Nike letter didn't really say that. And I thought it had a sentence. So here I am, it's 6 a.m. and I read this paragraph from Benyamin and I'm just thinking, what if it is a boycott? I don't know. We were just off Sally Rudy or Ben and Jerry's or something. And so I look at the Jerusalem Post, the whole story, and there's nothing there that shows it is or it isn't. And then they had a link to the letter, and there was a line in the letter, the announcement from Nike. It was really not an announcement, it was a letter to the stores. And there was something in there about our policies. And I thought, I don't know, maybe. So anyway, we kind of neutralized the paragraph more than Benyamin had taken a summary of the Jerusalem Post, which had a real slant in its story, tried to neutralize that a little bit. And then we assigned a story to say, like, is this a boycott or not? Which it was not. But it was an interesting test of this question of, not only can we keep our independence and fairness, but we're mostly looking at a bunch of places that don't have that necessarily as their guiding principle. And so that is it. Oh, Benyamin has a great idea, which is to give a peek at tomorrow's newsletter in progress. So I think I can do that. Hold on. You're going to
share the Google Doc,
what you saw before, and then we're going to go to the Google Doc. Have you cleaned up the edits, or you're going to show all the edits in there?
You can show all the edits.
Oh my gosh, this is going to be embarrassing. Okay, so here we go. So this is our lead story for tomorrow. And it's the great example of exactly similar to what we talked about, the cream cheese story. This is Benyamin, you talk about why you picked the story and what it is.
We publish so many stories, we publish over a dozen stories a day. And sometimes some of them get lost. And this is a great example of a story that published not this week, that was just like a wowzer of a story. And I was like, I really want to showcase this a little more. And it's this fascinating story of this Yiddish speaking immigrant who came to Ellis Island when she was, I think, 13 years old. And within 10 years of her arrival in New York, she was one of the most successful madams in all of New York City. And gangsters would hang out at her place, politicians would hang out at her place. And it's this really fascinating story. And there's a lot of Jewish angles to it. She talks about how a lot of Jewish women worked for her because their husbands were studying Torah, and this was a way for them to earn money. It was just a fascinating. I think her father or grandfather was they learned about the family from the Holocaust records. It was just a fascinating story. And you wouldn't know that if it was just a headline and a picture. Yeah. It's written also by a longtime writer and editor for the New York Times. He's retired and is taken to writing for the Forward and wants to do more for us, which is exciting. So then after that, we've got you can see, I hope Rachel's taking note at all the ways I'm trying to make it tighter here. But anyway, then we've got from our opinion section with two different really great op-eds, one on politics, one on sort of parenting and the holidays. And then here's that call out I mentioned about we're looking for new columnists.
There's a bunch of stuff here that we're not going to use today that is there's a series of these Google Docs and they get copied over every day. You don't want to know too much about. This is the beginning of tomorrow, what we'll do tomorrow morning. So we never finish, Benyamin never finishes this and tags me the night before. He waits till the morning. And then, oh, by the way, I think I just saw something in here. Wait, hold on.
Yeah,
here we go.
Cheese.
So yeah, so this is a
sneak peek for tomorrow. Kraft, the makers of Philadelphia cream cheese, are offering people $20 not to buy cheesecake so that they can help with the cream cheese shortage.
I mean, I really don't understand how that's not the lead item, but okay. And then we'll go down to the calendar.
You didn't edit it yet. Oh.
I had to do this event. This is my time, man. We have the archives that you just saw the photo of. And then, in case this wasn't enough, Benyamin also follows this with an internal forwarding the news that makes sure that the staff knows about all the goings on around the forward, any birthdays, anybody off, whatever, highlights what stories we're doing the best over the last 24 hours with the audience, upcoming content, and also like looking beyond through all this curation. Sometimes he's come up with some really good story ideas for what we should do next. I am sure we are over time. We're very close to overtime. This has been so fun. It's been really, really fun. And I want to thank you again for coming and for supporting us. I of course want to thank Benyamin for his tireless work, but more importantly, for the kind of energy and care and attention to the audience that he brings to this every day, every night, every day, every weekend, because he's always thinking about what do our readers need and how can I surprise and delight and inform them. And I'm so proud to be part of it. So thank you. And I'll hand it back to you, Rach.
Thank you. I have to say, I am so excited that we did this program because I love this newsletter so much, as Benyamin knows. He used to send a newsletter just internally, and I was like, we should just send this externally. That is the origin story of this product. It was like, everybody should have the delight of reading this thing every day because Benyamin is just extraordinarily gifted in this particular way. I mean, the upbringing with the 6 kids, the 5th of 6 children. I mean, who knew that is the ideal breeding ground for this vision of like speaking to the internal group, speaking to the external group. Anyway.
Rachel, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I want to add one more point to the origin story because it's an important lesson that Benyamin taught me. As I said, I was talking about this from before I came here. And we were talking about it and we were planning it and we knew it was the most important thing to do. And Benyamin knew it was the most important thing to do. And he started writing this internal newsletter. And finally, he said one day, I want to stop talking about this. I'm going to send you a prototype on Monday. And that's what he did. And it was great. And he said, I think we can launch in 10 days or some ridiculously small time. And I was like, but what about, and he's like, let's just do it. We can change it. We can make it better every day. And that's, he pushed me to start it and he was right. And I was wrong to be over planning. And I'm so glad that he did that.
And that is one of the most beautiful things about working at the Forward, as I was saying to these guys right before we started, which is we are a small shop. We do not have a lot of bureaucracy. We are lean and mean, but we also are very intentionally focused on being a breeding ground for ideas and launches and new things and really helping the helping the Jewish world have a media outlet that is evolving as media consumption is evolving in America. So 2021 for us was all about bringing on this new team. I mean, Benyamin, I don't think he's been with us for a year yet. Has it?
Almost a year. Not even.
Yeah.
No.
And Benyamin's not alone. We brought in many new people this year. Jody has really been building the team and launching new products. We also launched our wonderful podcast this year. That was 2021. As we look forward to 2022, it will really be about continuing to evolve and launch new things and refine what we have to keep up with how people take in their news. And it's always going to rest on the incredible talent that we have on our staff that you have seen here tonight. And so thank you, Jody. Thank you, Benyamin. And thank you, everyone, for joining us. We are just deeply grateful to you for your support. We all love working at The Forward. We love what we do. Your support makes it possible. And so I wish you a happy, healthy, safe new year. We'll see you in January. See you before then. See you tomorrow morning in the newsletter. But really, I look forward to coming together again and talking more about Beyond the Bylines. And thank you to Aaron White, who ran this for us. And thank you to Lisa Lepson, who helped set it up, runs our development team. And I'm sure there are other people I'm supposed to thank, but I don't know who they are. So thank you all. And good night.